Rawson Twitchell runs inside. Rawson Twitchell into the second level, the 10, the 5, touchdown Butte County.
It's Friday in Idaho, and it's time for another edition of Gem State Game Day.
Simmons to throw. Going deep down the field. He's got a man isolated. Did he catch it? He did in traffic. What a grab by Guy Wheeler.
Before you head out tonight to cheer on your favorite team, get caught up on the latest news, notes, and previews of tonight's gridiron action.
Here's a snap, and it's intercepted at the 10-yard line. That's Bodie Brackenberry. Jackalow sniffed it out.
Gem State Game Day is brought to you by Idaho Central Credit Union, your local Toyota dealers, and Project Filter.
This one's going to go all the way, 70 yards, no flag, touchdown Valley View.
Austin Belknap, 70 yards to the house. Buckle up, here we go.
That's right. Welcome in. It is the Week 10 edition of Gem State Game Day here on IdahoSports.com. We do this live every Thursday morning, 8 a.m. Mountain Time, 7 a.m. Pacific Time. So go ahead and get your cup of coffee or tea or whatever, orange juice, whatever you got. Thanks for being with us here on Gem State Game Day live on the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel, Facebook page, and X account. Of course, you can go back and watch Gem State Game Day anytime on replay at those three destinations as well. I am joined by a pair of East Idaho prepcasters this week. We won't let it influence the show too much, though. Let's welcome in, first of all, Joel Richardson. Joel, hello.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Good morning, Brandon and Sean. East Idaho's taking over the Gem State Game Day today, but yeah, we're not too biased, though.
So many monumental matchups over in East Idaho this week. Sean Kane is also here from the East Idaho Prepcast. Howdy.
Well, hello. How are you guys?
Doing great.
Good to hear.
So we are getting set for the final week of regular season competition and for the 6A Southern Idaho Conference, kind of technically the first round of the postseason, if you think about it in a roundabout sort of way. We'll get to all that in just a bit. But of course, we always start the show by taking a look back at what happened the week prior. And really, it's going to be a blend of last week's headlines, but also this week's headlines. Let's start with this one, guys. And then there was one. In a year of unprecedented parity, Rocky Mountain is the only team left in Idaho that is undefeated. Some big undefeated teams fell this past week, like Kendrick, Butte County, just specifically at the 8-man level. So it was very interesting to see only one undefeated team still remaining. How about this? The playoff picture taking shape. Teams that have officially wrapped up league titles and automatic playoff berths from the 6A ranks: Coeur d'Alene, Rocky Mountain, Eagle, and Rigby. From the 5A ranks, Preston and Skyline. From Class 4A, Moscow, Weiser, Kimberly, and Snake River. From Class 3A, Grangeville, Nampa Christian, and Firth. At the 2A level, Logos, Rimrock, and Valley have all clinched league titles. And at the 1A ranks, Council and Cary, both clinching conference championships. And then our final headline, league titles on the line. There are 5 games this week that serve as de facto conference championship games where the winner will take the league and the automatic playoff berth. The loser will have to settle for at least second. 2 of them at the 5A level, Lakeland at Lewiston, a game we'll have for you on IdahoSports.com, and then Minico at Twin Falls. And then 1 each for the 4A, 2A, and 1A ranks, Teton at Sugar Salem, Grace at Butte County, also on IdahoSports.com, both of those games. And then Wallace at Lakeside as well. Guys, of those 5 de facto conference championship games, 4 of them will be on IdahoSports.com. The only one we're missing is Minico and Twin Falls. That's pretty good coverage, Joel, for the final week of the season.
Yeah, dude, I can't wait, especially Butte County and Grace. Sean and I both saw Grace at the beginning of the year. They've stumbled here and there, but really glad that we're going up to Butte County. What a great facility, right? You guys got to make sure you get a burger afterwards, no? Get the, what was that burger that Logan Green likes so much?
Yeah, it's a Pickles place. Yeah.
There you go.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the Pickles Place burger, man. Gotta get some food afterwards.
I want a
Butte County
picture.
Grace game, awesome.
I want a picture of the whole crew in the big green chair outside there. That's what we need. Right on the Facebook. Everyone's sitting in that big chair at Pickles Place.
Yeah, we'll see if we can oblige. Let's talk about, though, another East Idaho game from last week, guys. It is our uncut gem of the week. This is basically our most exciting game, start to finish. I mean, there were some crazy games. You had Blackfoot and Thunder Ridge going to overtime, Titans winning by 2, 35-33. You had Wendell and Soda Springs going to triple overtime, guys. The first 3 OT game in Idaho this season might be the last one too. Wendell pulls that one out of the fire. But late in the season, we tend to highlight games that have significance. And there was no more significant battle than last Friday's showdown between Aberdeen and Westside. The Pirates win it 14-12. Joel, Aberdeen scored the tying touchdown in the fourth quarter. Who else? Lupe Ortiz, the fantastic quarterback, slippery athlete, but they couldn't get the 2-point conversion. And so Westside hangs on to win 14-12. Big win for the Pirates.
Yeah. And look, you can look at this game like a 1 versus 2 or 1 versus 2 versus 3 or 1 versus 3. And that Declo up top, because they're the number one right now. They're the district. I think they're the number 1 seed, right? They have that number 1 spot. But man, with Aberdeen and Westside, you just like I think Sean said last week on our East Idaho Prepcast, you flip a coin, and one of those teams is going to win. And look, it easily could have been Aberdeen. Westside pulls it out. And Westside coach, he said they have a high standard, and it's a giant win. And they don't win a lot of their games by large margins, so they're disappointed. But man, when they're playing the number 1 team in the state, which in this case it was Aberdeen, you never know what you're going to get. So they squeaked by with that victory. They would have liked a little more points on the board, but really you got to win the games. You got to win your clunkers, right? And in this case, it was a clunker against a really, really good team.
And then Sean, on the flip side, Aberdeen ran 55 plays. Westside only ran 31, and the Tigers piled up over 300 yards of offense, 323 total yards. But because they play that grinded out, you can get 323 yards on just a handful of possessions. It really does force Aberdeen to be almost perfect in terms of efficiency. And this time they were just a 2-point conversion away.
Yeah, stat-wise, Aberdeen, has all the stats. They don't have the W, though, at the end. And every football game we do, I don't know how many times this comes up, but how important special teams is, right? Getting those extra points or 2-point conversions. And that was the difference in this. And I mean, what a battle between Sage and Ortiz, right? You have these 2 dynamic players on the team, and what a chess match between them. And, Aberdeen able to get more yards, but, Westside was able to capture the king and queen on the night there.
Yeah, so let's take a look at what's going on in this 3A postseason affair here. If we look, guys, if the playoffs started today, here's what everything would look like. In terms of your conference champions, right now, Grangeville has wrapped up the North. Firth has wrapped up the East. District 6, the Nuclear Conference, and Nampa Christian has wrapped up District 3. All that's left to decide is District 5, District 4 and 5, that Southeast Idaho Conference. So you look at this bracket, the 4 district champions all receive a first-round bye. They get the top 4 seeds. Right now, guys, it would be Declo, Westside, and Aberdeen have all gone 3-1 in conference play. They each have a game left. Declo has a bye. But basically, these 3 teams are probably going to end up all tied with 1 loss, and they all have beaten each other, right? Declo beat Westside beat Aberdeen beat Declo. The tiebreaker is who's got the highest Max Preps ranking. So for the moment, we project Declo because they are number 1 in the entire state. That could change, though, Sean. I mean, because Westside and Aberdeen both play, Declo just has to sit and hope they've built up enough of a lead, 8.5 to 7.2. I don't know how big of a lead that is in Max Preps rankings.
Yeah, let me get my slide rule calculator and figure it out. But, I don't know if it's going to be whatever happens at the end. I think both teams are going to win, right? I kind of feel that way. But, I mean, if someone loses, then maybe you might see some movement in that. But Declo pretty much at the top spot. I think what it becomes is where they end up, and then at these at-large places, where do they fit in there, and who do you get a first round against? And, I mean, there's just going to be, you've played hard all year, and then you get your at-large game is against Aberdeen. You're not super excited, or Westside, right? I mean, you've got 3 just dominant 3A teams that are just going to be all over the bracket. You have to, so it's just pretty interesting. I don't think it'll be enough for both of them winning, but maybe if someone loses bad, you might see a switch in some of those, but probably not too much. maybe Firth moves up, but it doesn't really matter since they've already won their conference, right? That's where the kind of the movement would be. Maybe another team would maybe move up one spot and get a maybe easier opponent. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, the top 7 teams all still from East Idaho, Declo, Westside, Aberdeen, Firth, Ryrie, and West J, and then North Fremont in 7th. So the matchups would be right now, the other 8 non-district winners get seeded 1 through 8 based on Max Prep's rankings. It would be Priest River at Westside, Malad at Aberdeen, Marsing at Ryrie, North Fremont at West J. Again, the caveat is these opening round matchups of the playoffs can be tweaked at the discretion of the 2A or the 3A football committee. If Priest River has to go all the way to West Side, chances are they're probably going to get kicked to somewhere closer. But the question is, where do you send them? Because it's all in East Idaho. It doesn't really matter where you're going. So I don't actually know. And that's the other thing, Joel, is Priest River is right there on the cut line. A very tenuous lead over Melba, who really stubbed their toe last week in that loss to Marsing. Priest River's got to come out and win this game against Kellogg on Friday night, or they could find themselves on the outside looking in, and Melba could steal that last spot.
Yeah, no doubt. And when you're talking, just going back to travel, Brandon, yeah, with everyone in in East Idaho, where do you send Priest River? You can't send them to Declo. You can't just have them win automatically, right? That would be a little bit closer for Priest River. So it really doesn't matter. But yeah, if you're Priest River, fate is in your hands. You got to win your game, and I think they just may send them to West Side because everyone is in East Idaho. Maybe you could send them to Aberdeen. It's a little bit closer to Priest River, so you don't have to go all the way to West Side. But really, the Priest River has their fate in their own hands. Win now.
Yeah, what a fate! You get to play West Side or Aberdeen. So lucky. I mean, that's tough. Well, I mean, travel, right, and expenses is a big part of it. But at the end of the day, I mean, man, there's not like a game you're like, gee, they're closer. We've got a better game, man. Tough matchups all down the line.
Yeah, how would you like your execution? Would you like to walk the plank, or would you like to, get into the guillotine? It's either way, it's not a good scenario. Okay, guys, here is the schedule of games in Week 10 across the 3A landscape here. And again, we've kind of touched on a couple of the big matchups, but Joel, I'll go to you first. What is the matchup you're most excited to see here in Week 10 for the 3A landscape?
Yeah, so we're talking big matchups, but as I was looking at all these matchups, I actually am looking at Ryrie playing host to Salmon. Salmon at Ryrie. I know that's like, why are we talking about Salmon at Ryrie? Salmon's at the bottom of the barrel. Ryrie's already in. But I think it's interesting because those playoff matchups, guys. On paper, again, doesn't look like much. But Ryrie, they need this W to build momentum as they go in to play a good Marsing team. And then I think, Brandon, if I'm not mistaken, if they win that game against Marsing, which I think they should, then they have to play a really good Firth team that won the Newt Conference. Ryrie just lost to Firth by 8 points earlier in the year. I think it was 28-20. So Ryrie, with a W, get that momentum to play a good Marsing team, to play once again, that Firth team and try to get that W. A loss, on the other hand, if Ryrie is looking ahead, not focusing on the game in front of them, that loss could bump them to play North Fremont and then Declo. Again, if I'm not mistaken on the Baney bracketology, Brandon, they might have to play North Fremont and then Declo. So interesting game here for then Salmon to play spoiler to Ryrie's kind of playoff preparation.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Salmon could be a big storyline here in the final week of the season. Sean, what's the 3A matchup you're looking at?
Oh, you gotta go. I think you gotta go West Jefferson, North Fremont, right? I mean, it's a potential they could end up playing in the playoffs, but I think North Fremont was kind of on the upside, and they've kind of hit some bumps, and West J is kind of like a spoiler. Maybe to North Fremont's party, and you got two really good teams, and it'll be interesting to see, who can execute offense a little more effectively. I think both teams play defense well, and could come down to a really big kind of who's got the best field position game, but kind of an interesting late conference game between those two teams.
Yeah, in North Fremont, it's just gone cold all of a sudden. They started the season off really hot. West Jefferson, it should be noted, could take fourth in this nuclear conference. They beat Grangeville, the league champ, up north from District 1-2 this year at a neutral site game in Nampa. So the strength is definitely in the East. Games I'm looking at, Melba at New Plymouth. Melba's absolutely got to win that game. And then they've got to hope that Kellogg can take care of Priest River. Those are and then Melba probably gets in. Those are the two big matchups there. Also kind of a fun non-conference matchup, Grangeville and Nampa Christian. A couple of conference champions going to meet up in Nampa Friday night as well. So it's going to be a really interesting final week of competition here at the Class 3A ranks. Okay, guys, let's just keep it rolling here. Let's go up a level. So we'll work our way up from 3A up to 6A, and then we'll loop back around and hit the 8-man action at the end. 4A football playoffs. If it started today, guys, and there's not a single team that's undefeated in this classification. They've all kind of beat up on each other this year. And again, this bracket is a little unique. Just because you're a district champion doesn't mean anything. Doesn't guarantee you a first round bye. Doesn't even necessarily guarantee you a home game. All it guarantees you is a spot in the bracket. And so what do we know? We know that Kimberly has won District 4. Weiser, conference champions in District 3 for the first time since 2005, guys. Way to go, Weiser. From the north, Moscow has wrapped up the district title there. And then in District 5, it is Snake River who is officially clinched. So right now, you look at the top 4 seeds. They get first-round buys. It's Sugar Salem 1, and then Homedale and Weiser 2 and 3, and Kimberly 4. Weiser going, hey, we beat Homedale. Why are we ranked behind these guys? And then in terms of the rest of the first-round matchups, the play-in games, it's all seeded based on max prep. So you've got 5 versus 12, Fruitland and Teton, 6 and 11, Moscow and American Falls, 7 and 10, Snake River, Marsh Valley. That'd be a fun first round matchup. And then 8 and 9, McCall, Donnelly, and Buell. That was the same matchup last year. Buell went to McCall and got the first round upset on the road. So that is kind of where things stand in terms of teams on the cut line. Timberlake is the first team out right now. Filer is right there as well. Each of them would need to win their final game and hope Teton. I mean, the problem is that Teton's playing Sugar Salem. So no matter what happens, their strength of schedule is going to keep Teton somewhat in a nice position. Of course, Teton would love to get the win after losing to Sugar Salem in the state championship game a year ago. But here is the actual 4A schedule of games, guys. Some big monumental matchups. There's some teams that definitely need to win and probably need some help along the way. But Sean, what game are you dialed in on here?
In 4A, man, yeah, I think the Teton Sugar match is interesting. Things aren't a foregone conclusion anymore with Sugar Salem, and Teton would love to win this game. Like you said, after losing last year. And then I also want to key on one other one. I think it's a interconference matchup. Snake River versus Preston, I think, is very interesting too. As far as that ranking goes later, can that boost Snake River's ranking if they got a win? Can it boost Preston's ranking if they get a win? It's kind of an interesting matchup cross classification.
Yeah, you'll see it when we get to the 5A rankings. This will actually help Preston, I think, more than it'll help Snake River. But Joel, what's the 4A matchup you're looking at here in week 10?
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback off of what Sean was saying. Teton at Sugar Salem and then Snake River at Preston. I know we're both East Idaho guys, but those are very intriguing matchups. Obviously, Teton is on a 2-game win streak after losing a bunch of games, and Sugar Salem is beatable, as we've seen this season. I just love that Teton's still in the playoff race with 2 losses, but because their strength of schedule is so good, they're still there. But Snake River at Preston, and like you said, Brandon, we will look at Preston more closely in 5A. But look, both of these teams, Snake River and Preston, are 4A, 5A, Southeast Idaho Conference district champs. This is Snake River's 3rd year in a row being district champs. And then Snake River has just quietly won district after losing 3 straight games. But those losses were to good non-conference teams. And then Preston, of course, last week they upset Pocatello and stomped Century. Sean and I were both at that Century game to win the district. So you have 2 district champs going at it. Snake River is averaging about 22. Preston's averaging 28. But the difference is Snake River is only allowing 19 points. And Preston, as we've heard, Sean, they've allowed too many points on defense, 34. So this matchup is really interesting. If Preston wins, that strengthens their seeding in their own playoff race, and Snake River, obviously, it'll strengthen theirs as well. By the way, you already mentioned it was already on the playoff bracketology, but Snake River's predicted to play Marsh Valley. And then maybe if they can win this game, maybe they play American Falls, which would be an easier game than Marsh Valley. So wins would be great all around for both these teams. They would have, I think, easier matchups in the opening round if they were to win this one.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, American Falls has kind of got to be careful here too, because I mean, if they fall significantly to Marsh Valley, and let's say Timberlake is not favored against Bonners Ferry, Timberlake's 2-6, Bonners is 4-4. But if Timberlake wins, or let's say Filer comes out and beats Buell, that's going to give Filer a pretty good bump, and could that knock American Falls out? Really, to me, there's like 4 teams fighting for 2 spots between Filer, Timberlake, Teton, American Falls. American Falls and Teton are kind of in the lead positions, but each of them need to win and or keep it close. And
yeah,
so,
and American Falls, man, we were pretty high on them at the beginning of the year, but they've kind of stuttered as of late. And I love that that Snake River kind of quietly pulled this one out. I mean, they were the favorites, but still Marsh Valley had a strong team. American Falls had a strong team. They were thinking they were going to do something. So I really love that Snake River just quietly won the district. And now they've set themselves up really nicely with a win over Preston, or even a loss. They've set themselves up nicely for the opening round of the playoffs.
Yeah. So yeah, Buell at Filer, Timberlake at Bonners Ferry. Those are going to be games you're going to want to keep an eye on. And then these teams are both comfortably in the playoffs, but could flip the seeding potentially. Fruitland at McCall Donnelly, 3rd place on the line in the SRV as well. So that is the 4A roundup, guys. Let's just keep it rolling. Let's go 5A. Let's do it. Let's let it roll. We're like on a hot streak here in Vegas. This 5A bracket, again, there are 8 predetermined bids available based on district representation right here. 1 from District 1-2, 2 from District 3, 2 from District 4, 1 from District 5, and 2 from District 6. And those 8 auto bids automatically get the top 8 seeds, guys. So Preston, by virtue of winning the District 5 championship, you see it right there. They're 16th in the Max Preps rankings. Not anymore. Move on up to number 8, and you get a home playoff game in the first round right now projected against Lewiston. That is a long trip for the Bengals from Lewiston down to Preston. Not only that, Lewiston's ranked 5th overall in the Max Preps rankings. Now, Lewiston can change their fortunes if they defeat Lakeland Friday night to win the Inland Empire League. We'll get to that in just a second. But in terms of the teams that have actually clinched top 8 seeds already, we have Bishop Kelly. We have Minico and Twin Falls, each from District 4. They're playing for the conference championship, but no matter what happens, they are the top 2 teams. So they'll be slotted in somewhere in that top 8. Preston from District 5, and then Skyline and Hillcrest, each from District 6, have already wrapped up the top 2 slots. In fact, Skyline will finish first. Hillcrest will finish second. Otherwise, if you look at the bottom and the cut line, Nampa, technically the number 16 seed, they're actually the number 14 seed overall. So to me, Joel, this bracket appears to be fairly settled. I mean, Skyview at 1-7 is the first team out in this gigantic 16-team bracket. Hey, if you can't get 2 wins and get in, then I mean, you only got to look at yourself in the mirror.
Yep. And, it's interesting because Sean and I were talking to the radio guys at Preston a couple weeks ago, and they said, we don't want to travel, right? Like, we don't want to go up north. And Preston goes ahead and wins their district. So they're not traveling. They're playing host. And so while they are 16, we thought, Sean and I thought, well, maybe Preston was going to be the first team out because they were before they beat Pocatello. They were either right on the cut line of the first team out. Preston goes ahead and beats Pocatello. And as we see, they're ranked number 8. So now you have, Nampa and you had Skyview, who are just out thanks to Preston winning that. So I love that Preston took fate into their own hands and now have messed up other teams along the way.
Yeah, the 15 and 16 teams, Twin Falls and Preston, each will have top 8 seeds. So it's 16 Nampa at 1, Skyline, 8 and 9 is Preston and Lewiston, 4 and 13 Bishop Kelly hosting Pocatello right now. The 5 and 12 Minico and Emmett. 2 versus 15 would be Hillcrest and Sandpoint. 7-10 would be Twin Falls Blackfoot. The 3 and 14 would be Lakeland and Shelley. And the 6-11 matchup would be Valley View and Bonneville. Some interesting matchups. Pocatello's going, oh, great. Bishop Kelly again. Cool.
2 years in a row.
Well, they've played, in the semifinal, I feel like they've played a lot. over the past couple of years. Here is the Week 10 schedule of games, guys. Joel, what's the 5A matchup you're most excited to watch here?
Well, I've had a couple off the cuff picks, but this one I'm going big, guys. Sorry. Number 6 Minico in terms of max preps, right? At number 15 Twin Falls is going to be the big conference rivalry. Both undefeated in conference, like we've talked about. The conference was a little weak this year, though, guys. But man, Minico is so fun, so strong. They do have a slightly stronger strength of schedule. Obviously, they're coming into the 6-2. Twin Falls 4-3. They average about the same points per game, guys, but Minico allows just 11 and Twin Falls allows about 15. So they're still actually pretty close in defense. But Minico, of course, has Preston Sonner Granny running the ball. I'll be interested to see if Twin Falls can stop him. They have a pretty good defense. But, right now, Twin Falls is currently predicted to play Blackfoot. Is that right? In that opening round. And, if they win, could that bump their ranking and play Bonneville? I'd much rather, as Sean knows, we'd much rather play Bonneville than Blackfoot at this point. Blackfoot's kind of on a roll, even though they dropped last week. So much better to win this game than to lose not only your conference district titles on the line, but also a better playoff matchup against Bonneville. And then, of course, guys, it's senior night at Twin Falls. A little more juice, a little more pep in the step. You're playing for each other. So a really great atmosphere. Last year, Twin Falls did beat Minico at Minico 4-3-15. Can they repeat? I think Preston Sonner Crane is going to have something to say about that.
Sean, what's the 5A game you're looking at?
Oh, I think you got to go Lakeland Lewiston, right? Lewiston's coming off a strong performance, a win against Sandpoint, and then you have Lakeland, who's very powerful offensively. They've got some good players that can do big things, and as Ryan Skaggs would say, they need to run the ball. Dang it! And but I think both teams. I think this game is just it's conference. But it just has so much importance going on, and it should be a tough competitive game. I think because both are trying to get a higher spot. Lewiston does not want to go down to Franklin County and play a game. I mean, it's a tough matchup, but you want to get that home game or at least not have to travel as far. We know how that can go sometimes, but I like there's a lot of at stake with this Lakeland Lewiston game.
And Lakeland's like, man, forget that. We always have to travel to East Idaho. I remember they had to play Skyline in the Dome in Pocatello in the opening round. They went to Lookout Field. First ever playoff game at Lookout Field history at Pocatello High was Lakeland against Pocatello, a game Lakeland probably should have won, but they fumbled late and Pocatello got the win there. Yeah, you're right. They're going to want to run the ball, establish that run with Lovey, Weil. They're great all-conference tailback. Lewiston kind of, they got that big win over Coeur d'Alene, right? That 13-7 kind of ugly Thursday night win way back in September. And then they played like a lot of out-of-state opponents. So they've kind of been out of sight, out of mind. But man, that's going to be a really fun one Friday night for sure. Big implications, guys, in the Southern Idaho Conference. Let's just go ahead and get into it. Bishop Kelly, Emmett, Nampa, Valley View. Those are your top 4 teams, and there are a lot of scenarios on the line here. So the simplest one is if Bishop Kelly beats Emmett and Valley View beats Nampa, BK is 6-0, they take first place. Valley View finishes second at 5-1. Emmett and Nampa each go 4-2. They tie for third. Emmett wins the head-to-head tiebreaker. BK and Valley View get those top 2, protected seats, those top 8 protected seats. If Bishop Kelly beats Emmett and Nampa springs the upset and beats Valley View, BK still first at 6-0, but then Valley View, Emmett, and Nampa are all tied for second at 4-2, and it goes to the Aussie point system. Yes, essentially this is you take the point differential amongst the 3 teams when they played each other. It's capped at 14, and so essentially, and I'll cover this in more detail on my bracketology post. We don't have time to discuss all of it here, but basically, the Aussie point system between Emmett, Nampa, and Valley View would go to Emmett. Right now, they are done. They sit at +10. Nampa is at -14 because they lost to Emmett 53-28. Valley View beat Emmett 18-14. They would be at +4. But in this scenario, Valley View was losing to Nampa, and so you figure that would not help them. So Emmett, if it's a 3-way tie between Emmett, Nampa, and Valley View, Emmett gets that second spot. What happens if Emmett beats Bishop Kelly? I mean, BK's played really close to, they barely put away Ridgeview last week, and Ridgeview's in dead last. If Emmett beats BK and Valley View beats Nampa, then you have a 3-way tie for first. BK, Emmett, Valley View, all 5-1. And they all beat each other. BK beat Valley View would beat Emmett would beat BK. Again, to the Aussie points system. Basically, Emmett would need to beat BK by 6 points or more to claim the tiebreaker. If BK lost by 5 points or less, the Knights would still have the better Aussie points total. They'd be the conference champs. And for Valley View in this 3-way tie scenario to not finish third, they would need Emmett to win by 11 points or more. That would put Emmett 1, Valley View 2. And then in our final scenario, if Emmett beats Bishop Kelly and Nampa beats Valley View, BK and Emmett would tie for first at 5-1. Emmett would win the head-to-head tiebreaker. So, Sean, BK has the easiest path. Emmett has kind of the second easiest path. Valley View and Nampa, it gets a little more dicey.
Yeah, it's I like it. I like the parity in the Southeast Conference. I like having a little more. It's not just all to Chuck, right? I like it, and we've seen through the years that Bishop Kelly and Emmett have big-time battles usually at the end of the season. So, what a game! Usually, always a good game, and comes down to a lot of implications. But now you got to win by 6 or whatever, So it's going to be a great game. And Nampa, I think, is a team that has been lurking kind of around all year, and I wouldn't be surprised if they could find a way to beat Valley View. But Valley View is kind of they seem to kind of be stuck where they're at. Really, if they would have won out, but yeah, it should be pretty interesting. I'm very excited to see this Bishop Kelly Emmett game.
Yeah, it's a really confusing outcomes that could happen here. I don't like Joel, it almost feels like sports gambling to me a little bit. Like, oh, well, if BK covers the spread of -5, then they're like, I don't like that part of it.
Yeah. And I was thinking, is there a simpler way as you're going through this, which is amazing, Brandon, is there a simpler way to, decide this? I don't like the coin flip. I'll say that, but yeah, if there's a better way to do this, these point differentials, versus this Aussie formula. But I do like that they're trying to, kind of add some math to it. But maybe, I don't know, is this a moment, and this is maybe isn't what we're talking about, but grab a committee and look at your strength of schedule and
Kansas City playoff.
Yeah.
How great would that be?
Right. Yeah. But maybe we should simplify this just a tad bit, because you start messing with, you mess with this formula and maybe you're trying to lose because it might work out in your favor. I don't know. It seems a little bit much.
Yeah, it's going to be confusing for sure. And Sean, Kansas City playoff, ask and you shall receive. We'll get to that in a little bit.
That's my favorite thing. My favorite. I love it.
Yeah, we don't have those as much anymore because of now. Really, so many brackets are filled using Max Preps rankings. In years past, where it was all predetermined bids, you would have. I remember my first
Saturday morning.
My first year at IdahoSports.com, there was 8 Kansas City tiebreakers that took place across the state on Monday because there were so many spots that had to be figured out. Now, really, it's only in play if it's a conference champion, and there's really only one spot available to the playoffs. And we'll get to that in just a moment. But guys, we're going to take a break, and then we're going to come back and tackle that 6A bracket. Oh boy, there was some off the field stuff to get to and a lot of interesting things that happened, some shakeups. And so we will break down what's going on at the 6A level right after this break. You're watching Gem State Game Day. Don't go anywhere. We're back right after this on IdahoSports.com.
A hit in the morning, another between class, after school, and more before bed. Vaping sucks you in quick. Not to mention all the chemicals and health problems everyone's talking about. That's why thousands of teens are ready to take back their life their own way with My Life, My Quit. When you sign up with us, you'll get a free and simple quit plan that makes it easier to stop vaping. Visit mylifemyquit.com or text Start My Quit to 36072. Later.
Pizza's here. Girl, thank you.
Hello?
I was in an accident.
You okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. I have my seatbelt on.
Welcome back to Gem State Game Day on IdahoSports.com. Brandon Baney with Joel Richardson and Sean Kane. You'll probably notice we're wearing different shirts than what we wore for the rest of the show. And we'll give you a quick behind-the-scenes look here as we're ready to break down the 6A football landscape this week. We were all set to talk about 6A football, and then all of a sudden, some crazy off-the-field stuff happened, and so we had to wait, and we had to record our 6A portion of the show separately and then reinsert it in. So, hi, good morning, everybody. Let's talk about the big story here, Joel, which was Monday morning, Boise High School files a complaint with the District 3 Board of Control, alleging that Owyhee had used an ineligible football player for its final 2 games of the regular season. Essentially, their starting quarterback, Cole Frogley. He joined the team midway through the year, and the rules state that you have to have a minimum of 10 practice sessions before you are eligible to compete. Boise alleged he didn't have the 10 practices in. Owyhee said he did have the 10 practices in. The District 3 Board of Control sided with Boise and determined that Owyhee would have to forfeit its final 2 wins over Boise and Mountain View. And that would have completely changed the SIC cross-divisional playoff games that take place this week that basically decide who gets to go to the playoffs and who gets to stay home. Well, Owyhee filed an appeal with the IHSAA. The IHSAA ruled in Owyehee's favor. And so after all of that, we go right back to where we were prior to all of this mess starting. Joel, clear as mud, right?
Yeah, no, nothing changes. And I'm curious, how does Owyhee, and look, we don't know, right? So speculation is probably foolish at this point, but how does Owyhee know, or how does Boise, how do they know, right? That some player hasn't practiced 10 practices. Like who's keeping track of that? I get it. If it was, hey, we messed up, we need to forfeit some games. But if it's another team calling out practice sessions, that just seems wonky to me, man.
Yeah, certainly an interesting situation, Sean.
Yeah, I mean, being a coach, I understand the 10 practice rule. You have it in place, you keep track of it. I mean, but there's no central tracking system that you're putting this into, right? It might be a pencil and paper, might be a Google Excel sheet. So, I mean, I think any coach that's coached for a while knows this, especially in football, because it starts at the start of before school starts and stuff like that, 10 practices before you can play in competition. And a lot of times it's a weeding out rule, really, is you just don't want people showing up and then coming and thinking they can play, that they have to have 10 practices, and for safety concerns. But yeah, a very wonky a rule to bring up for someone to break, I guess, of all the rules that are out on the website on the IHSAA. That is not one I was very familiar with, being one that to be targeted. But maybe there'll be some more stipulations on how you keep track of that going forward. I could foresee that coming.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of times it's maybe like academically ineligible players that are being used or something like that. Not the 10 practices, because the middle of the season, you figure everybody's got the practices in. So anyways, let's take a look at the 6A landscape, guys. Standings on the left, schedule of games on the right. Here's what we can tell you. Coeur d'Alene has won the Inland Empire League. They went 2-0. They beat Post Falls and Lake City. High Country Conference, Rigby wrapped that up 2 weeks ago. Even though they're 2-0, if they fell to Thunder Ridge this week, they would still be 2-1 with the head-to-head tiebreaker over both Madison and Highland. So Rigby is in. They get a bye. Coeur d'Alene is in. They get a bye. Rocky Mountain and Eagle win their respective divisions in the Southern Idaho Conference, the Foothills and the River. They are playing in the SIC championship game Friday night. Both of those teams have advanced to the playoffs, and they get first-round byes. So half of the quarterfinal field in 6A is already set with Coeur d'Alene, Rocky Mountain, Eagle, and Rigby. I feel like what we're really going to hone in on here, guys, are these Southern Idaho Conference cross-divisional games. But, Joel, there's also a big game lingering over there in East Idaho as well. Where do you want to go on the board here?
Well, I picked Eagle at Rocky Mountain, but I'll go with you with the High Country Conference in East Idaho. I think, Highland at Madison is going to be very interesting because Madison's lines, I've said this all season. I've talked to Sean a lot about this. Madison's lines are so massive. They've given everyone fits, including a very, very good Skyline team, maybe the best team in 5A. Madison beat Skyline because their lines were just better. So Madison should beat Highland. Highland is reeling right now, Brandon. They've lost 2 games in a row, first time since 2022. Madison should win that game, and then Rigby gets to play Thunder Ridge. And I don't want to say – Sean and I have both talked a lot about don't catch the chickens before they hatch, but Rigby should win that game, and it should be a nice tune-up for the playoffs. So those games are going to be interesting, but I think the game we got to talk about is Eagle at Rocky Mountain. Maybe nothing changes after those two teams play in terms of playoffs, but what a great matchup.
Well, I'll tell you, the winner of this SIC championship game will be on the same side of the bracket as Rigby for the semifinals. They would host Rigby. Whoever loses the SIC championship game will be on the same side of the bracket as Coeur d'Alene and would potentially have to travel to Coeur d'Alene for the semifinals. So you definitely want to win that SIC championship game, even though I think, well, I don't even know because Coeur d'Alene beat Rigby earlier this year. So it's a hard path no matter which way you take, but you get a home game at least if you win. So that's what's on the line there. Sean, what's the game you're looking at here in week 10?
Well, yeah, I think that obviously you guys just hit on that Eagle Rocky game. I think it's the most anticipated game maybe of 6A football right now of the season. I think that's going to be a very good game to see and what happens. But it's funny you bring up the bracket because that's what I was thinking about, right? If it ended today, Rocky Mountain is on the same half as Rigby. And I don't know if it's a good or bad thing after you just said all those great things, Brandon. I'm kind of thinking like Rigby feels great, right? They got the number 1 seed, but now we get Rocky Mountain, but at least they're away from Coeur d'Alene that they lost to. So I don't know what you want on that, but I think you hit it the nail on the head. You want a home game, and so winning is the big thing there. I also think there's an interesting game with Post Falls and Lake City. I think that's a big game to end the season, and that could sway where some of those teams fall in that at the at-large bids as well. So Lake City, played a good game against Highland, nearly beat them. Post Falls has been interesting at times. So I think that the stakes are very high with the playoff implications for that Post Falls Lake City game.
Yeah, Post Falls and Lake City, the winner of that takes second place and gets the second auto bid from the north. The loser will have to try and get the at-large bid. And spoiler alert, if Lake City loses, Max Preps doesn't like them for some reason this year. Even though they're 4-4 and played a really rigorous schedule, they would not be in the mix. So Lake City has to win that game if they want to get a playoff spot. And then Post Falls with a loss could potentially get in. But there'd be stiff competition for that final at-large spot. Same thing there. Highland and Madison, they're playing for second place in the East, and 2 teams automatically get to go. But whoever loses this game is going to get in as an at-large team, basically. But you'd be on the road. So you definitely want to win that game if you're Highland and Madison. The SIC cross-divisional playoff games, there are 4 of them. The winner of those 4 games will all advance to the playoffs. You have Mountain View at Middleton, Owyhee at Timberline, Meridian at Cuna, Capital at Bora. We will have 2 of those games for you on IdahoSports.com, the Mountain View Middleton matchup and the Meridian Cuna battle. Only one of these is a rematch. Bora beat Capital once already earlier this season. Bora is the only team of this group that could lose and still probably get that last at large slot. Any of the other teams, if they lose, are probably out. So there's a lot of high stakes, high pressure in these SIC cross-divisional games for sure. Here is the bracket, guys. If the postseason started today for Class 6A football, what would it look like? We talked about it. Rocky Mountain, Rigby, Coeur d'Alene, Eagle, they all get the buys. It's just a question of, does Eagle go up top here, or does Rocky Mountain stay there? Right now we have Timberline at Middleton, Owyhee at Post Falls, Highland at Bora, Cuna at Madison as our first round playoff matchups. But there's not a lot of wiggle room on this bracket. You'll notice Boise ranked 11th in the Max Preps rankings. They are actually not eligible for the postseason. If we go back to that schedule of games, guys, Boise is kind of stuck in that last place game. The 6th place finishers from each of the 2 divisions play each other, Boise at Centennial. And you think, well, hey, Boise could get an easy win over Centennial and maybe still have a high enough Max Preps ranking to steal that last at-large spot. Owyhee actually did that 2 years ago. Owyhee was in that last place game, won it, and got the last at-large spot to the playoffs. After that happened, the SIC said, we need to rewrite a rule here. We can't have that happen. So now if you're in this game, Boise and Centennial, you are automatically out of playoff consideration. So for Boise, just a chance to finish with some pride. But overall, guys, I think this is fairly buttoned up. And we'll see what happens there. When we come back on Gem State Game Day, we will go from the big dogs at 6A. We're going to go all the way down to 8-man football, talk about the 2A and 1A playoff implications in the landscape. Right after this, you're watching Gem State Game Day on IdahoSports.com.
We're a valley-wide country store. For 100 years, we've been your #1 choice for food, fuel, farm supplies, and just about everything else you could need to get you through your day. We know you work until the job is done, and so do we. For gas on the go or a little extra to help you get down the road, you can count on us. We are proud to employ your neighbors and to be a cornerstone of your community. We're valley-wide. Yesterday, today, and tomorrow. We're here for you.
Welcome back to Gem State Game Day on IdahoSports.com, coming to you live on a Thursday morning on the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel, Facebook page, and X account. Of course, you can go back anytime, Thursday or Friday, and watch Gem State Game Day on replay as well at those 3 destinations. Brandon Baney joined by Joel Richardson and Sean Kane. All right, guys, we're done with 11-man football. Let's get to the 8-man game. Oh, boy. And of course, if you're looking for more 8-man coverage, you can always tune into the Idaho 8-man Prepcast on IdahoSports.com with myself and Will Henneke and the coach, Lane Kirkland. A lot of good 8-man content there for sure. But, guys, let's take a look at this 2A playoff bracket. Timber. Oh, my goodness. Some big trees fell last week. Logos took out Kendrick. You had Hagerman defeat Butte County. And so now you've got this glob at the top. There are 5 teams, the top 5 teams in the Max Preps rankings, all with just 1 loss. And they've all kind of beaten each other, right? Butte County beat Logos. Hagerman beat Butte County. Valley beat Hagerman. Logos beat Kendrick. So it's just upside down, totally crazy. This bracket, guys, 4 district champions all receive a first-round bye, and those are all set. It is Logos from the north. It is Rimrock from District 3. Congratulations to the Rimrock Raiders for winning the Western Idaho Conference. Valley gets the District 4 championship. And then we do have one more to decide, of course, in East Idaho, Butte County and Grace this Friday. Winner of that will get a first-round bye. And for Butte County, they're the #1 team in the Max Preps rankings right now, so that's why we have them projected as the conference champion. But Sean, we know when Butte County and Grace get together, you can throw the records out the window.
Let's not mince words, right? Grace and Butte County coming up, maybe the most impactful game of this classification. So it's going to be really interesting to see. Butte County is known for their, being good on the ground, defense, all that. And Joel and I have seen Grace. Grace is a little more kind of high-powered, maybe pass the ball a little more than you'd think from this division, but a high tempo. And Butte County can grind out a game, or they can go a little high tempo too. But man, you can put the statistics out the door. This is going to be a battle for the ages.
Yeah, for sure. And we should note those 4 district champions, they do get the first round bye, but then the quarterfinals are reseeded. So just because you're a district champion doesn't mean you're going to get a home game or a top 4 seed. We see that with Rimrock, guys. The Raiders are actually 15th in the Max Preps rankings. So they're going to inherit that #8 seed. So really, guys, if Butte County wins, they can start games. They'll know, hey, we're playing Rimrock, Joel. They'll have 2 weeks to prepare for the Raiders.
Yeah, and lucky Rimrock Raiders get to play #1 Butte County. What a start. But still congratulations to Rimrock for winning, right? Their district. But whether it's Butte County, Logos, Hagerman, or Kendrick, you're not you're not excited if you're Rimrock, but you're in, right? And that's why we play the games, because you never know what's going to happen.
Yep. So the other 8 at-large teams all get seeded according to Max Prep's rankings. So right now, 8-1 would be Murtaugh at Hagerman, 7-2 Glens Ferry and Kendrick, 6-3 Raft River and Kamei, 5-4 Grace and Prairie. How about that? 3 teams from the north get to host first-round games potentially in this 2A 8-man bracket. Who's on the cut line? Really, guys, this is going to be very interesting. I think we are fairly set. 11 of the 12 spots I feel pretty good about, or 10 of 12. Basically, it's going to come down to this right here: Glens Ferry, Murtaugh, and Potlatch. Now, you might be going, well, geez, they're 10, 11, and 12, and 12 teams make it. What's the big deal? Well, don't forget, Rimrock's hanging out down here. They're going to steal a bit. So really, you've got 3 teams fighting for 2 spots, and they are all bunched together pretty tightly. And now if we look at the schedule of games, this is where it becomes really intriguing, guys. This week 10 breakdown for the 2A schedule, where Potlatch plays Logos. We figure Logos probably going to win that game, but that's going to keep Potlatch in a pretty good spot because of the strength of schedule factor. And then look at this, guys. I can't remember which one of you said you were going to highlight this game, so you guys just jump in. But Murtaugh and Glens Ferry, that is like a de facto playoff game. That's an elimination game right there. Did either of you highlight this game on the rundown? No?
No, but we can talk about Murtaugh, Glens Ferry. It's a playoff game, Brandon. It's going to be amazing.
Well, it's pretty interesting, right? Glens Ferry has a winning record. Murtaugh does not, but still could, break in here with a win. So, yeah, it's almost like it's like that one game to get into the baseball playoffs, right? If you win this one game, you're in. So a lot riding on the game.
And I'll just say, Brandon, really fast, strength of schedule I think strength of schedule is huge. We keep seeing these teams, these Murtaughs who are 1-3, 1-6 overall, that are really close. So keep teams, just FYI, if you didn't know already, keep scheduling really, really hard schedules, because it's going to pay off when you come down to it and you're 1-6 and you're that close to getting in or getting kicked out.
Yeah, it's just crazy to me. Glens Ferry has kind of a signature win, right? They beat Raft River earlier this year. Murtaugh doesn't have that yet, and yet they're only separated by like 7 points. Right. Glens Ferry is at 29.9. Murtaugh's at 22.9. I guess I don't know enough about the Max Preps map. Maybe if Murtaugh beats Glens Ferry in a really tight game and Potlatch gets boat raced, maybe Glens Ferry and Murtaugh both make it. It's those 3 teams in particular: Glens Ferry, Murtaugh, Potlatch, are all going to be biting their nails on Friday night. Okay, well, since none of you chose Murtaugh, Glens Ferry, Sean, which game are you highlighting?
We kind of hit on Potlatch Logos. I thought was pretty interesting. Like we thought, you would assume maybe Logos wins, but who knows? Both teams have been playing pretty well. If Potlatch can tighten up their defense and not allow so many points, then who knows what happens. It could hinge on whether or not they can slow down Logos. And has anyone been able to all year? Not really, but why not start at the end of the season and get a signature win yourself? So that was kind of the game I was looking at.
Yeah. Also up north, you've got Kendrick, who just lost to Logos. I believe the quote from Prairie coach Ryan Hasselstrom was, "Now we get a fired up Kendrick team coming to our place." Great. Joel, what's the game you're looking at here?
Yeah, I was going to discuss Grace at Butte County, but really fast, Potlatch played Kamei last week, and again, fate was in their hands, and they decided to lose to Kamei, right? Wasn't that last week? And so, yeah,
I don't know if they decided to lose. I think Kamei just beat them, but
dude, I picked Kamei to win that game while Sean and our North Idaho Prepcast friend chose Potlatch, but I figured Potlatch was going to win that game. I chose Kamei because I like the pronunciation of their name, but I'm a little bit disappointed that Potlatch didn't get that win, because now they're in this rough situation. Now they got to play Logos, and who knows what's going to happen there. But I want to hit one more time Grace at Butte County. I mean, this is the district titles on the line. Obviously, Butte County is the favorite, but I think it's important here, guys, that Grace gets out injury free, because they got to go and play. Well, I mean, I can't remember who they're playing now in that first round. And then they could, if they win this game, if something crazy happens and they win that game, that could replace Cami, and they could play Raft River, which would be a much easier team than who Grace is playing right now. So that Grace and Butte County game is significant. But if Grace is going to lose, I think you I don't know, man. You play it safe and you come out injury free as much as you can. You want to play the game, but you also want to get ready for the playoffs.
Yeah, and then if Prairie loses, to an upset Kendrick team, they'll get an upset Grace team that had just lost. So they're really batting 100.
and really, guys, I mean, if we bring this back up, right now we have Grace projected to go to Prairie, but they're all three so close, right? Cami 39.7, Prairie 38.9, Grace 36.1. There could definitely be some movement there where Grace maybe gets a home game, even if they lose to Butte County, depending on how things go with Prairie and Kendrick. And so a lot to sort out, but hey, Grace knows if we win, we get a week off, and that's the ultimate goal. So that's going to be a good one for sure. All right, guys, let's wrap it up with the 1A ranks then. More 8-man football here. And this is a league where it's a little deceptive. The top 5 teams in Max Preps all have kind of like the 1A, each have a loss. Cary, Tri-Valley, Dietrich, Council, Shoshone. But boy, the more I look at this, Joel, Cary is kind of head of the class. I mean, they have dominated Dietrich and Shoshone, their conference opponents, not just winning, but winning in blowout fashion. They would be our number 1 seed in the playoffs right now. There are 5 districts here. The top 4, according to Max Preps, get first round buys. Right now, that would be Cary 1, Council 2, Rockland 3, and they haven't clinched that yet. Cary and Council have clinched. Lakeside 4, they have not clinched yet. And then Deary, our 5th district champion, they have not clinched yet. This is the most wild and unpredictable. There's a lot of things that could change on this bracket. Otherwise, you get seeded according to Max Preps. So right now, Cascade is our last team in as the number 12 seed. They would be at Deary, the 5. Chalice at Tri-Valley, 11-6. 10-7. North Gem at Dietrich, 9-8. Garden Valley at Shoshone. On the cut line right now, Wallace at 7-1, guys, would be out of the playoffs. And again, you're going, well, they're 12th. There's 12 teams. Deary's 13th. So somebody, the White Pine League champion, is outside the top 12. All of the teams are. Somebody's going to steal a bid. So this game on Friday night becomes pretty important, guys. But here is the 1A schedule of games, and then we can kind of run through the playoff scenarios here. Joel, what was the game you tabbed this week in Week 10 for Class A football?
Yeah, I got Garden Valley at Cascade. You already mentioned it. After Cary, everyone else, I just feel like any game is winnable. So if you're Garden Valley playing at Cascade, this is a long pin conference battle for 3rd place. If you win this game, that might, right now I think Garden Valley is playing Shoshone and Cascade is playing Deary. And I think if you're Cascade, you have the better matchup due to the lowest conference champ Deary playing, the lowest at large, which is Cascade. If you win this game, you're obviously in a better position. Garden Valley is playing Shoshone, who I listen to 8-Man Prepcast, Brandon, all the time. I don't want to play Shoshone, man. I want to avoid that game. And so, man, you got to win this game. Garden Valley at Cascade. I think that's going to be very, very fascinating. Garden Valley average about 40 points, Cascade 31. And they're both kind of, their defense, they're about the same, giving up 20 and 25 apiece. So identical records. This game decides the difference, and it could be huge in these for playoff seeding.
Yeah, Shoshone looking to make the playoffs for the first time since 2000, the turn of the millennium. Garden Valley, man, they're playing like 5-6 kids a game at quarterback. They're just throwing everybody in there, and it's working. So that would be interesting for sure. Sean, what's the game you've honed in on?
Well, I've got a couple, but I'm going to go with North Gem and Rockland, right? This is a huge game for the conference. and I believe it spars a lot of scenarios that can come out. And Rockland started off the season with so much promise, a lot of injuries, a lot of different things. And North Gem, I felt like started really strong too, and kind of took some licks. So both teams trying to kind of regain that confidence and momentum going into the playoffs, right? Probably for a Rockland team more, but so crucial. And then also, where does Chalice end up? And I'm sure Brandon will tell us in the scenario part, but this game has a lot of implications. And I'd like, you want to see both teams end well after they started well, kind of took their licks and bruises, and both teams can't win, but one will definitely be in the right direction momentum wise.
Yeah, so right now Rockland is 3-0, Chalice is 3-1, North Gem is 2-1 in league play. Chalice is done. They're on bye this week. If Rockland beats North Gem, Rockland's 4-0, they take first. Chalice is second at 3-1. North Gem would finish third at 2-2. That's the easy. If North Gem beats Rockland, then they all tie for first, right? Rockland, Chalice, North Gem would all be 3-1. They all would have beaten each other in this scenario. Goes to a points differential tiebreaker, unlike the Aussie points system, which we were exploring earlier at the 5A level. There's no points cap on this one. So, for example, Rockland beat Chalice 36-0. That is plus 36 for Rockland. That is minus 36 for Chalice. That pretty much takes Chalice out of the running like immediately, because they only beat North Gem by 2. Their total in this scenario is minus 34. North Gem lost by 2 to Chalice, so they're only at minus 2. If North Gem wins by 20 or more, North Gem wins the conference. Rockland takes second. If they lose, or if they win by 18 or less, then Rockland still gets first place. And so it's kind of a ugly situation. It's going to encourage North Gem not only to win, and I talked to Coach Corey Hatch about this week. He said, I just want my team to win. He said, but now that's not even good enough. Now we got to go out and win, big. He said, I just want my team to win. So he's not a big fan of this. I would advocate for the Kansas City playoff, but that's just me. So anyways, Rockland looks like they're going to win this thing. I mean, they would have to lose by 20 or more. And we'll remember, guys, last year, this district, it was still predetermined. It wasn't based on Max Prep's rankings. Only 2 teams got in, and there was a 3-way tie for second place between Water Springs, Mackey, and North Gem. And it came down to that tiebreaker, and Mackey edged out North Gem by a point to get that last playoff spot. So North Gem didn't even make the playoffs last year. So I guess on that hand, North Gem looks like they're probably going to make it still, regardless of what happens. Okay, and then let's talk about what's going on up north, guys. White Pine League. It looked like we were headed towards a Deary, Genesee undefeated showdown, district championship on the line. Genesee loses to Timberline of Weippe last week, guys, 28-14. And so now Deary with a win wins the league outright. They're 3-0. And only one team is getting in from this league. That's just the way it's going right now with Max Preps. If Genesee wins and Timberline beats Lewis County, all of a sudden you've got a 3-way tie. If Genesee wins and Timberline loses, then Genesee and Deary would tie for first, and Genesee would win the league in that scenario. But let's get crazy here. Let's say Genesee, Deary, and Timberline all finish tied for first at 2-1. Sean, you get your wish. We'd go to the Kansas City playoff.
Let's
Date,
go.
time, location to be determined.
Brandon's backyard.
Yes, and for those that aren't aware, the Kansas City playoff is basically kind of like a jamboree. Genesee would play Deary. Genesee would start with the ball at the 20-yard line. They'd have, a chance to score, and then Deary would be on offense, and then Deary would play Timberline, and then Timberline would play Genesee. So, a lot of crazy things that could happen there in the Kansas City playoff. That is for sure. And then up north, guys, Lakeside and Wallace. Each of these teams 4-1 in league play. This is a double round robin conference where you play every conference opponent twice. Lakeside beat Wallace the first time, but then Lakeside stubbed their toe in an overtime loss to Coeur de Christ 2 weeks ago. They lost 60-58. So now this is a true winner takes all playoff battle. If Lakeside loses, probably, 60-40 chance they still make it in as an at-large. Wallace has to win this game. They are on the outside looking in right now, Sean.
Yeah, this is the other game I kind of highlighted. It's Wallace has to play well to get in, right? Wallace is a good team. They have a great quarterback. They're good at throwing the ball. Can they have enough to take down Lakeside and get a spot into the playoffs? I mean, that's what we're going to have to wait and see. But, you've got kind of two big kind of offensive teams here, and it might come down to who can tighten up their defense this weekend, to see if someone can play a little better defense. Maybe that's the team that wins.
Yeah, it's going to be a really fun battle for sure. And guys, that'll do it for this edition of Gem State Game Day. We don't really have time to go over the pick six because, well, we spent so much time breaking down the brackets and talking about all that crazy off the field stuff. So that's all right, though. You can see all of our pick six selections on our social media accounts before the games kick off on Friday. Joel Richardson, thank you so much for hopping on Gem State Game Day and doing this.
Yeah, Brandon, thanks for having me. It's been fun.
Sean Kane, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. For Joel and Sean, I'm Brandon Baney. Good luck this Friday, everybody. Postseason football starts next week on IdahoSports.com. Thanks for tuning in to Gem State Game Day, and we'll see you next time on IdahoSports.com.